we talking about currency versus proficiency. It's like the $1 million question, and $1 million balance is something that every pilot, especially once you become a pilot and get your ratings and everything, you completely know the difference between the two. First, I'm gonna tell you what it takes to be current as a private pilot. And I'm gonna talk about what proficiency is and why understanding the two is so important, because the importance of it is, this is something that could probably save your life, save your ticket, save your airplane. So when you're a student pilot, the only thing you do to keep current is make sure you got a valid medical certificate and you're legal and safe to fly that airplane. As a private pilot, you only have to get a flight review every 24 months. So every 24 months, you gotta make sure that you get a flight review with an instructor saying that you're good to go, basically, to fly an airplane in whatever operation you're gonna do. Now, this is just you only flying by yourself, not flying with anybody else. Now, anytime you get a new rating or you get a new certificate, so if you get your instrument rating, commercial rating, multi-rating, anytime you get a rating, it resets that 24-month clock. Now, the currency requirements to fly with passengers is slightly different. You gotta do 3 takeoff and landings within the last 90 days in the aircraft in the same category, class, and type if it's required. And if you're doing it at night, then you gotta make sure the land is at night. So in this case, let's take a look at these two things, right? You essentially can fly whenever you want in a 24-month period, regardless of how much you've flown. You can fly January of one year, and then 12 months later, hop in a plane and fly again, and the FAA does not care. But if you're flying with somebody else, you're flying with passengers, they want to make sure that you have 3 takeoff and landings within 90 days to make sure that you're safe. Cool, we know what we got to do to be legal. Now, let me ask you this. Does that sound like is a smart idea? Well, probably not. Because if you think about it, if you're a new pilot, even if you're an old pilot, and you haven't flown for 90 days, do you think it's safe to go fly with some other people? Hell, if you haven't flown for almost 24 months, do you think it's probably a good idea to go fly by yourself? Well, that's the difference between currency and proficiency. Currency is being legal, as what we just talked about. But proficiency is being comfortable and being safe when you fly. Just because you're legal to fly does not mean that it's a good idea to fly. So I always recommend that if you haven't flown for a while, even if you're current, that maybe you either fly with somebody else to kind of get you back in the swing of things, or fly with an instructor. There's no harm and no foul with flying with somebody else to make sure that you feel good about flying. And there's never a reason that you should be forcing yourself to get in a situation where you feel like you have to fly. So a little bit of story time. There was this, I knew this guy, this wasn't me. I knew this guy who had got their private pilot certificate, and about 6 months later, they flew another time. And then within a year later, they wanted to go take someone flying with them. So what they did was, they're like, all right, well, I'm gonna go fly this airplane and get my 3 takeoff and landings so that I'm legal before I go fly with somebody else. All right, that's smart. You wanna make sure that before you go fly with somebody else, that you know you're safe. So you're gonna go do your 3 takeoff and landings. So when this individual goes and they go take off, they go fly and they go in the traffic pattern. They go around one time in the traffic pattern, nothing's wrong. Go around the second time and it gets a little squirrely. The wind's a little weird and the airplane kind of bounces a little bit, porpoises a little bit, and this, well, it wasn't a student, the pilot hears a weird noise, taxis back around, because he already did his 2 takeoff and landings, so he has 1 more left to be current, right? So he takes back off and flies around in the traffic pattern, comes back and lands the airplane. Now, when he pulls into the traffic, or pulls into the parking lot, he parks the airplane, cuts the engine off, and the propeller is bent in towards him. Like, what he hadn't realized was that in the middle of his porpoising to land, he actually bent the propeller. Now, luckily, when he took back off with that bent propeller, nothing happened, which is very lucky. But it just highlights that was a really bad decision he made. After have not flown for more than 6 months, being a less than 1 year private pilot, hopping in a plane to be current was not the safest idea. So tell me what you think he should have did in that case, if that was you, to kind of prevent that situation from happening. Well, anyway, like I said, currency versus proficiency. You want to make sure that you're not just legal, but you want